5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And it's live.
This is Leicester Till I Die TV. Watch and subscribe on YouTube and listen on your podcast platform.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good night, good day, goodbye. Hello, wherever you are in the world, of course, one of those will apply to you. This is LTID TV 1 from Leicester Till I Die. Thank you very much for joining us. We've already got a couple of people in, so I'm going to say hi to Craig and hi to John. Their comments will possibly come up later once we get going. If you are watching, look, it's all about Beggars Can't Be Choosers. Dan, the Burnley fan, you may remember him. He is my illegitimate son off the network. He's my flesh and blood, and you might add that he's my sperm as well. Who knows, and but of course, when he came out, Ginger had to disown him, and that's... But then again, we could be in love with Gingers now we're getting possibly Sean Dyche. But he says we can't be, we've got to forget where we were and think where we are, and Sean Dyche could be the man for us. Do you agree? I'll put my teeth in. We'll be bringing up results of a couple of polls I was doing in a second. But first of all, say welcome along to the show. If you're watching, join in the chat on the right-hand side of your screen. They will come up as we go through the chat live. If you're watching on catch-up, add your comments below. We're always pleased to read them. And if you're listening via your favourite podcast platform, whatever that may be, thank you very much for listening and lending me your ears. Next time, if you could wash them out, I would be grateful. Look, I've got to say, I don't normally do a promo until the end, but you may or may not have seen, I've posted it on LTID TV social media platforms, but is this worrying at all? Thailand's retail giant on the brink of collapse? We heard the other week that Top had moved up to CEO, and there's a new guy coming in who was previously CEO, I think, at Airports of Thailand. And he's come in, and there's a lot of, because they had a monopoly, King Power, on the airport duty frees. They've obviously been hit by COVID, and obviously with the Vichai passing. I was asking what that would mean for Leicester. But then it's now gone on, and the main online newspaper, The Nation from Thailand, has been saying this, that they are going out of business. Join us tomorrow at 7 o'clock for Fox's Forum, when we will be discussing this in more detail. Who misses, as they say. It is a little bit worrying. But look, it wouldn't be Leicester, would it, if we weren't, if something wasn't going wrong. Follow us on TikTok, by the way. You've got the code there. Just scan that in. You get all the best bits of the show without having to listen to me go on and on and on for 90-odd minutes while you do it. Let's get our guests in. Wayne, Mr. Prima Donna himself. We had a little bit... He was a bit late coming on, which was why we were late starting. A little bit of trouble with one of the makeup ladies. But, all I'll say is, has he got the number for Philip Schofield? We'll see. We'll get him in and we'll ask him, along with Dan, straight after this. Good evening, gentlemen. How the devil are you?
Living the dream, Chris. Living the dream.
Well, you always were. Wayne, how did the makeup go?
To be honest, Chris, you can't get decent makeup artists these days. I told her burnt orange wasn't my colour. To be honest, I've instantly fallen out with Dan because to rub it in our faces saying he's living the dream, that's just below the belt, isn't it?
Kind of. But then again, look, we lived the dream a lot better than he did.
True.
So far, Chris. So far.
Well, with the great Scott Parker in charge, who knows where they can go? I mean, first of all, Dan, look, I'm going to say this. Congratulations on the promotion. We passed each other like ships in the night, which is what I used to do with your mother back in the day. Unfortunately, I pulled in at port a couple of times, which is why you're here.
Except you stayed in pool.
Yes, I did. Look, no, I mean, well done at coming up. I've got to say, I was very, very surprised. Scott Parker, not my first choice as manager for anybody. And I think if you come down to Bournemouth, I think they call him the bin man down here. They absolutely hate him, the man with the cardigan and what have you. But look, what a fantastic bloody season. Was it 2 losses, only 6 goals conceded?
Yeah, it was some achievement in the end, really, from something that we didn't really expect. Like I say, he's come in. We still had a bulk of that squad from coming down, and then something just changed. We had 6, 7, 8, near enough the full team knocking on the manager's door saying, "I want out. I want to leave." It just became a bit of a roller coaster, and we barely had a squad. We actually thought, "Wow, this season we are going to really, really struggle." Looking at the signings that he brought in, Jadon Anthony, who had been loaned out for numerous seasons. Parker clearly trusts in him. He took him at every club he's been to. We've done really well. That's all I'm going to say. I think we've rode our luck in quite a topsy-turvy championship season. I mean, who else would have thought the teams that were in and around the playoffs would have done what they did? Sunderland absolutely romped it and would have won the league if they carried on the form they started with. But then they had to settle for the playoffs in the end. But no, I'm happy, and let's just see what we can do. Obviously, signings are starting to come in.
Is it a man, though, to keep you up? We know certain managers, Daniel Farke, Scott Parker, they're very good at getting teams up, but not necessarily very good once they get into the Premier League. No,
and I think Parker's record stands against him when it comes to the Premier League. His record is quite shocking, really. I think especially the Bournemouth one was a bit of a telling sign. When you've got Jurgen Klopp putting his arm around Scott Parker pretty much 60 minutes into the game saying, "It's all right, you're 5-0 down." And he's like, "Don't worry about it." It's, you're going to get these moments. It's the thing is with Burnley, I think we are a club that don't, hire and fire. We sort of give the managers time to bed in, create their own, twists on things. And I just think that he'll be better equipped with the experiences he's had going into this campaign. But again, we all know, as yourselves have found out this season, the gulf between the promoted sides and the rest of the teams in the Premier League is just...
Wayne, Dan said there, time to bed in. I mean, fucking hell. I mean, Ruud van Nistelrooy, he's not only bedded in, he's pulled the quilt over his head and he's not moving, is he?
No, he's not. It's really strange, that situation. I've got to say, joking apart, congratulations, Dan. It is such an exciting time getting to the Premier League and all the ins and outs. It's a great time, and congratulations, mate. But yeah, Ruud van Nistelrooy with the managers, we're in a real state of flux. I did think with the PSR it would kind of play out this way, different accounting periods. And that's the situation. Although I congratulated Dan, the teams are on a hat trick of hat tricks for everybody in relegated back. So all his teams getting out of the Championship, which we were a yo-yo team for many, many years, until the last 11 years. So we're all picking at the bones and trying to desperately claw and stay in the Premier, or even get in the top 6 like Brighton. But it's set up for teams like ours to fail.
It is.
What's the secret formula?
Well, I think Leeds will stay up this year. Sorry, Dan. I think Leeds will be the one that do stay up because they did have that extra season to sort of, get it right in the Premier League before coming straight back up again. But time will tell. Time will tell. I mean, just out of interest, before we get on to our next manager, Wayne, if he was available now, would you have...
Just froze, Chris. Would I fancy a takeaway on Chris? You to treat me, Chris? Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Sorry, I froze then totally. My internet is playing up. Sorry, Wayne. I didn't get the answer to the question. Would you take Scott Parker?
No, personally. And it's going to, it's like Vincent Kompany, all these managers that are, good in the Championship, struggling in the Prem. There's plenty of them about because, you've got to change the way you play, and maybe Burnley are more set up defensively. But it's like we said, I mean, you could have a striker that scores 30 goals in the Championship, a defence that only lets in 10 goals all season, but get in the Premier against the quality, and that's when you're really tested. So,
but then again, you could have a striker like Daka who's just shit wherever he plays. But look, in fairness, Sean Dyche took Burnley up and he kept Burnley up and he got Burnley into Europe. A couple of points I'm sure Dan will be making during the show. But coming out today, and if anybody saw it, I did a programme last Thursday, I think it was, with Phil from Leicester Fan TV. And he kind of said, what he'd heard was 1st of July is when it's all going to happen, which I think a lot of us are presuming or had been presuming because that's the start of the new financial year for PSR. So, we're released from last year. And that it's going to be Sean Dyche. And looking at the latest odds, now this was at 11:15 this morning with Bet Victor. But you've got Sean Dyche as 2-5 on favourite. Danny Roll has gone out slightly to 7-4. Carrick at 4-1. O'Neill, God help us. O'Neill at 10-1. Rossignol at 12-1. And then Wagner also at 12-1. And Wilder at 14-1. So it looks like Sean Dyche, and we have been linked with him a few times before when there's been vacancies. Interestingly, though, and before we get into this, I thought very much that the fan base, the feedback I was getting on social media was that fan base didn't want Sean Dyche as their manager. So I put out a couple of polls, one on Twitter, one on Facebook, and I have to say they were both exactly the same. There wasn't much difference. So, but I added them together and divided them by 2, multiplied by 7, took 10 away, and ended up with actually 78.9% of those fans that expressed a preference said yes, they would take Sean Dyche. 21.1% said no. Dan, I mean, does that surprise you? It bloody shocked me.
No, not at all. Not at all. I think what he's done, but looking back at his career, and I know that this sounds like I'm going to build up some sob story for his appointment, but it gets taken on by the Pozzos at Watford. Doesn't really get much of a shout. We know what Watford are like for hiring and firing. So we were the first club to really give him a chance. And like I said, we don't just toss managers to the side. We got promoted. We came back down. There was rumours at that point that, oh, well, that's it. Dyche is going to go. We're going to get somebody else in to try and keep us up. But he got us back up at the first time. Then I think we had something like 4 seasons in the Prem. I just think his management of the players that he has at his disposal is what works best with him. Like, it was everything in the back room, the training ground. It takes all that prima donna stuff away. He wants you no headphones as you're walking into the ground. You know, he wants you to shake hands with the fans and wants you to be a real tight.
The man with headphones on. Sorry.
Yeah. It's either that or you get an echo, Chris. I don't know how sharp you want you. But no, he's so down to earth, and I think, you know, a lot of players have said that. You know, you only have to look at ex-pros now that are still in contact with him.
Yeah.
And I just, it's not just, you know, I take his Everton stance. You know, it was a little bit, even they thought, oh, what's he going to do? You know, I thought he's going to have a bit of money, but he didn't, because but him, that was just been at Real Madrid, spent it all, and Koeman and everybody else beforehand. So he didn't really have a pot to play with, similar to as he didn't have here, but he had some of the former Burnley players there that he knew would die for the shirt, you know, put all that effort in. It'd be interesting to see what he could do with a Leicester squad, in my opinion, because you are quite attack-minded. You like to be quick.
Did you watch us last season?
No, but I'm saying you like to, no, but based on that championship season and the stuff like that, you know, you were trying to play it out to the wings, get the ball in. Yeah. Something that probably would be more suited to, I'd say, Danny Roll, who's been mentioned.
Yeah, yeah.
But for me personally, where Leicester are at now, and with everything that's going on, and we know that Sean Dyche has worked with, you know, a tight budget. Like I kept saying it before, he'd get crumbs out of a packet of Freddo. He never got anything at Burnley, so he would work wonders for Leicester. And for where you are at, I don't think there's any better choice out there at the moment.
I mean, looking at those that are on the list, Wayne, obviously, you know, if we do get Roll at the moment, unless he walks away, and if he's not paid again at the end of this month, apparently it's in his contract that he can walk away, so he then wouldn't cost us anything. But Dyche is obviously not going to cost us anything in compensation. But looking at that figure below, I mean, you're not a Dyche fan. You can understand the advantages maybe getting him in, but he wouldn't be your first choice. But looking at that, 78.9% of Leicester fans, as I've got to say, who expressed a preference, actually said they prefer Kitty Cat. Have actually said that they would like to see him at the club. Does that surprise you?
Yeah, when I clicked on my vote and the result came up, I was like, oh my God, that is a surprise. The reason why it's a surprise is not, I do rate him as a manager. I think, as Dan said, with the resources he's had in the past, he's done magnificently getting the most out of players, and he's had to work with lower quality players. And so if he's done that and got Burnley promoted, then sort of re-promoted, he has got the best out of his resources he's got. It does surprise me because I view him as in the same mould as Steve Cooper, which is the fan base. A lot of the fan base hated before he even started because they were still drunk on Maresca, and he left us in the lurch. And so anybody else come in along, they're going to be crap. And then with social media, some of the fan outlets, they quickly got. I mean, the snowball, the forest fire just was uncontrollable, and the club got rid of him. But I do think Cooper, looking back, I think he probably had a good chance of keeping us up. And at that time, people said, I don't care what happens, as long as we can finish 17th and stay up in the Premier. Yet when it actually came to it, the fans that said that actually didn't stand by the word, and they were calling for his head. And then, you know, hindsight's a valuable thing. And no fan can say, some fans say yes, but he was already, the team was turned against him, but no fan can say that we would not have stayed up with Steve Cooper. So that's what surprises me about the poll, was that, you know, Danny Roll is more of a Maresca type manager. He believes in the eye press. He does change his formation at different times. And he's the sort of manager that I would have thought Top would go for. So it does surprise me that there's rumours, isn't there, about Rudkin wants him and Top doesn't. So
I'll just scratch that question off my pad, shall I?
All right.
No, it's a good point, though. It's a good point. I'll just stick with Wayne for this, if you don't mind, Dan.
Yeah,
It's because when it came to Cooper, it was a Rudkin wanted him, Top didn't. Now, obviously, what we don't know with tomorrow, and look into it more, whether Top will still be with us much longer. But Rudkin wants Sean Dyche, but Top doesn't. Now, if the top two, no pun intended, but if the top two at the club that are making this decision can't agree, Wayne, we're up for shit creek without a paddle, aren't we?
We are, and it's great using that analogy, Chris. I love it. It's an old classic, that is.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, we are. But I mean, look, it's not because people on social media, people say, "Oh my God, they can't," if they can't agree. But in business, you will have arguments and differences of opinion right at the very top on a board level. That doesn't mean say you're a crap company. And really, as a business, you want people to give you, if you're in charge, you want people to come and challenge you and give their different opinions. I think Susan Whelan stepping down and running the business has cost the business. But I do think...
It was her choice, though, was it? Apparently.
No, it's just what market and conditions and post-COVID, she had to kind of get the business back on its feet again. But I do think losing Tori Vishai and Susan Whelan, the balance is out of order. They need at least one or two people more in there. But the fact that you have disagreements, you could love your family, you have disagreements, but you got a common cause. So,
I mean, you say the same about, YouTube presenters. You can love fellow YouTube presenters on your channel, but hate their guts.
Yeah.
Anyway, Wayne, I jest. I love you, Wayne. It's Dan I hate. Only because he's cost me so much money over the years. Dan, whenever you get these managers in, they always seem to get like a 3-year deal. Yeah. And they all talk about, this is the plan. We've got a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan or whatever. And the plans are absolutely ridiculous because at the end of the day, your manager's unlikely to be there that long. I mean, we gave Steve Cooper 12 games, 13 games, something like that. We weren't even in the relegation zone. Ruud van Nistelrooy got over 30-odd games and took us down. Do you see, and I'll follow this on with another question afterwards, but do you see Sean Dyche, if he is appointed, as a short-term appointment rather than a long-term appointment?
I don't think Dyche will want a short-term appointment. I think Dyche will want to be in it for the long haul. I go back to what Wayne said, that Dyche can be in that certain mould of certain man. At Burnley, he was put in the same category as like Allardyce and stuff like that. It's boring long ball football, but if that's what gets you results, for the time being, look at Everton. They did start to perform and go a little bit on the front foot because he managed to have attacking players at his disposal. We didn't have that at Burnley before. So he can adapt in certain ways. I think from the contract perspective, I think he's starting off with 2 years isn't a bad shout. If you gave him a 2-year contract, it gives him a year to get his feet under the table, especially with whatever's going on this year, whatever's happening, at the boardroom level, as well as the, PSR stuff. And it's how he sees that, how those in the boardroom portray that to him. What's the move as of next year once this is all been covered? That's going to be a big question to ask for any manager coming in, because they'll want not just the contract stability, but the stability of the club. They don't want to be, they want to make this team better. But if they've got no tricks up their sleeve to do that, you're expecting someone to come in and work miracles.
I'm going to throw this at you then, Dan, because I put down at the bottom there, based on because we had a little chat on X before we'd agreed to do the show, and you kind of said, and I get it, and I'm not going to have a go at you for saying it, but certain Leicester fans, and every club's got them, but certain Leicester fans were probably being quite entitled when the way they were looking down their nose at Sean Dyche. I mean, that obviously doesn't equate to the polls that I ran, but I mean, do you think we don't, we've got to accept, and I'll come on to this with the same question to Wayne after, we've got to accept that we are not the team that won that trophy 11 odd seasons ago now, 10, 11 seasons ago. We are a team that's in disarray. We are a club that looks like it's being mismanaged. Is it a case of accepting whoever comes in?
It has to be. It has to be. We achieved a 7th place finish in the Premier League and got qualified for Europe under Sean Dyche. We then had that very same squad for probably the next 3 to 4 years, and yet half of our fan base were like, "Why aren't we achieving that again? It's another year in the legs. We should be better." It's people's minds tend to go further afield. They're wanting that progression, probably just like them at boardroom level. Like, oh, where can we step on from this? Do we have enough structure with the money to go forward? And it's not always that. There's also got to be that plan B, plan C, plan D. Because if it doesn't work out, you're up shit creek without a paddle.
Yes.
So what I meant by what I said is that, yeah, we all have certain members of our fan base that are fickle and want what's best. We all want what's best, but they are expecting the best. And right now, the best is getting through this period. It's probably taking some note from Sheffield United in case of just ignore whatever points we're on. Let our football do the talking. And if we get 3 points after 3 points after 3 points, this minus points deduction ain't going to mean shit to us. So that's the thing that people have got to think of. I do think that he is, and I think it were my exact words I said to you, that Sean Dyche will be the catalyst to bring top flight football back to Leicester City. And he will keep you up. That's another thing he's good at.
That's what we're going to come on to, because that's a very good point. Wayne, same thing with you. Do you think we've become entitled over the years? I mean, I'm not saying that, it wasn't the worst thing that ever happened to us winning the Premier League, but it has become a bit of an albatross round our neck, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I think we, as a fan base, the younger fan base are more entitled because they're looking at the snapshot of the last sort of 11 years. So when King Power take over, it went down and down, and then we came back up, signed Vardy, got Kante, sold players for a lot of money, won the Prem, lost to the eventual Champions League winners, Atletico Madrid, lost to the eventual Europa Conference League, Roma. We had a brilliant run, but all the teams like Sheffield United, Burnley, Leeds, we've all been, because traditionally before that, Leicester were a yo-yo team. We only ever mainly got in the Premier sort of through the playoffs, and and I think a lot of fans are unrealistic. And it's like, when you played with Brendan Rodgers and we were like going for Champions League and we're playing beautiful, really fast football and had really skillful players, we're not there now, and we have got to rebuild. And it's like when you come up like Burnley, will you be a purist like you Russell Martin and stand on your principles and you will definitely get relegated if you go up to the Premier League, or will you adapt and change? Maresca's definitely a purist, not so able to adapt. So I do think Dyche would keep us up, and I think he is second favourite on that graphic that you've got, Chris, because I do want Danny Roll, because I think he's got a longer term future. But if you sign a manager like Dyche, you can't get 2-year deals for managers. All of them want 3-year deals.
Well, understandably, of course. Got to say a big hello to the other woman in my life, Kate Musgrove there. Kate, how the devil are you? It's been a while. Are you missing me? Next time Dan falls asleep listening to me on the bed, send me a message. I'll be round. And just
You've always been round, Chris.
Oh, I have. I'm built for pleasure, not for speed, young man. Hi, Kate, by the way. That's put me totally off my next question now. Yeah, I mean, what is more important, Wayne, to you as a Leicester fan? Is it winning, or is it playing extremely beautiful football?
Well, in an ideal world, you could have your cake and eat it too.
No, but you can't. The question was, he gave you. This is Wayne, he should be a bloody politician. I'd get straighter answers if I had Nigel Farage in the top corner. But no, Wayne, that's the choice. Winning things, because look, when we had Enzo, and look, I'm not into all this pep football shit and what have you. You know, you sprinkle somebody with the fact that he touched Pep's bottom in a crowd once, and we've got to have him. He's got to be the best thing since sliced bread. I'm not into that, and I know I had Julian Watson, ex-Leicester player, and he manages. Not he's at high level. He would admit that himself. 11th tier, and it's the reserve team, but he plays pep football, playing out from the back. We did that, Wayne, under Enzo. We were 20-odd points clear at the top. Was it 27 points clear at one point? And people were moaning what boring football it is. It's either one or the other. But if I said to you now, okay, we'll get Danny Rowling. He'll play lovely football, passing it around, playing out the back. Or Sean Dyche, who may be more direct, should we put it politely, but he'll get you promoted. Who do you want?
Well, I think Danny Roll could do the job.
No. Honestly, will you answer the question?
Yes.
I'm going to start calling you Keir Starmer. Now, come on, answer the question. I will ask it you. What was it Nick Ferrari on LBC does? About 5 or 6 times. I'll get the numbers up. That's your first time of asking. Your second time of asking, what would you sooner have? Pretty football or a winning team?
As a match goer, pretty football. As a fan, yeah.
You can't have
Well, you can with a good manager. You can have both.
Yes, but let's say we can't have both. I'll leave it at that.
I'll tell you what, Win. I'll put it one way. I'll put it one way. Vincent Kompany came in, completely changed the look of our team. We played some really nice football in the Championship. Worked a dream. In the Premiership, just absolutely abysmal. One of the worst seasons I've ever seen as a fan. It was just, you can stick to your principles at times. There's certain players that have said, yeah, we have tweaked things where we've decided to go over the top. Yeah, but it's a bit different when you're already 4-0 down. Trying to change it doesn't work. And this is another situation. Like his sort of football at Bayern Munich, perfect, because they've got the players for it. But if they come in and they're trying to build this team, and then again, he bought players that don't even play. We've shipped out on loan, or we've ended up selling them because he wanted a big squad, knowing that if it didn't work with one player, I've got somebody else to fill the void. So is that something that Leicester would want? Or Leicester willing to, invest and bring X amount of players in, hoping that it'll come right? Or is it you stick with what you've got that are ready to, they know the situation, they're ready to go through it, and you've got a manager that's willing to stick by those lads and put their arms around them and say, if I've got it wrong, I've got it wrong. But Dash, it was boring under Dash. I'll hold my hand up. It was, but you were going there with optimism, thinking you could shit house a 1-0 win here.
Yeah,
we could just something off the counter, and it were those moments that, for me, Sean Dyche has got to be the pinnacle of, Burnley football club. He still is Mr. Burnley to us.
As Paul says there, Brian Clough once said, to win and play entertaining football is utopia. True Ed said a winning team. Paul Stevens said most of the teams win without playing entertaining football.
League One teams and League Two teams are doing it, though. They're trying to play this Pep way now. And this is why you're seeing scorelines on Sky Sports, like 6-2
what did Pep win this
like
season?
That.
What did he win this season? Sweet FA. But coming to you then, Dan, look, we had a team last season that we tried to play. We did exactly that. We brought a player in and we played him half a game. And that was it, And now he's putting social media posts up about missing home and wanting to go home. You can't blame him. He played a left back at right back all bloody season, even though the player that he bought in January was the right back. A manager that we went the longest number of games without winning, the longest number of games without scoring, most defeats. I mean, these are all records that we've got under Ruud van Nistelrooy. They say insanity is trying the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Well, he did that 21 times, and 19 of those times he lost. So I don't know how insane that does make Ruud van Nistelrooy. But somebody's just said Sean Dyche will come in. And, you conceded almost, we conceded almost the same number of goals as we scored. I mean, that's how bad we were. We could have had Messi up front and we wouldn't have bloody scored because we would never got the ball to him. Sean Dyche, though, will come in and he'll get, as I see it, build it from the back. Somebody just said he'll make us difficult to beat.
Yeah. You'll be built on a very defensive structure, but you'll be solid when going forward. You have the players up top to put games to bed. You keep hold of Mavididi and Fatawu and stuff like that, and you'll be living the dream in the Championship. And that confidence then going into next season, Dash sort of just... I mean, I'm looking at his stats here for all competitions. It's pretty equal across the board. 425 matches with Burnley, 152 wins, 154 losses, 119 draws. And let's not forget, he spent 9.5 years with us. 7 of them were in the Premier League.
Yes. Yeah.
So that record in itself for me says he's doing something right, whether it's boring to watch, whether it's soul destroying and you come away thinking, how did we get away with that? It's the unpredictability I like with Dash that people will say is predictable, but you come away after 90 minutes thinking we could have got something there.
I mean, looking at that there, Wayne, 34.6% winning percentage at Watford, 35 at Burnley, like Dan said, 149 odd wins, 30% at Everton. He kept Everton up when Everton had a points deduction. And all right, they didn't qualify for Europe, they didn't play fantastic football, but we'd have bloody taken that. We've got a manager that we're replacing that's got a 15% win rate, if that, 12, I think it is. We'd kill for those stats, wouldn't we?
We would, although Everton would have got relegated if they had put the points deduction within the season they breached, and we'd have stayed up during that season, actually.
But in fairness, though, that wasn't Dyche's fault. That was the...
That's true, yeah. Yes. Yeah, so definitely, and as Dan said, for those, if you're spouting those stats and they're in the Championship, then a lot of teams will look good in the Championship. But for that to be mainly in the Premier League is very impressive. And he, like I said in that graphic, he's my second choice, definitely. He comes above Wilder, O'Neill, Carrick, and anybody else. It's just I would like Danny Roll because he is not a stubborn modern manager. He's not particularly in the style of Pep, but he's just a really good, aggressive front foot manager who can change things during the match. But yeah, definitely Dyche. I've got a lot of respect for him. A lot of respect for him. And he might even get as a centre forward that can score a few goals with his head.
Or just score a few goals. I don't care if it comes off his arse 20 times in the season. You just want to roll with it, don't you?
Oh, hey. Have you got a bottle of Oasis there, drink, bro?
Oh, Dan's missed this.
I have. The problem you've got with Danny Roll is that he's going from a club that at the moment is not getting paid at, and yet could be going into a club that is, one, facing points deduction, and two, nobody knows what's happening at boardroom level. Is he wanting to have some extra security in his next role? If anything, it's almost like, I'm not saying it's a sideways move because it's definitely not, but in terms of the structure, for Danny Roll, would he probably think, no, I need more stability than what I'm given? Where Sean Dyche has now been out the game for, I think, at least half a season to a full season now, and will probably be chomping at the bit to get back into it. So obviously he's local around that area, he's always had ties with, teams around the area, worked under Clough and stuff like that. But I get what you're saying with the likeliness to Cooper, but I do think that Sean Dyche is a bit more well-rounded, and I'm not just talking about his beautiful bald ginger head.
Ginger Mourinho, isn't it? The ginger
he is.
Mourinho, yeah.
Exactly. Look, I mean, I lived in Burnley for quite a few years while he was manager there, and the guy's got a great sense of humour and
it's a clean air zone now. We got rid of Chris.
Suppose you think you're funny, do you? Look, I'm going to come on to this, Wayne, because it's a good point that Dan made there. I can't believe I've never said that before. Dan made a good point.
I am. I will be recording that bit.
Yeah, slip it. You could say, why would anybody come to Leicester? You know, you come into a team that, like when we took Cooper on, we don't know what's going to happen. We might have points deduction. We might have a transfer embargo. We might have a business plan in place. But you could also argue then, why did people want to go to Watford? And I'll go back to that Nigel Pearson interview that he gave with Sam Allardyce on Sam Allardyce's podcast when Sam Allardyce asked him. And he didn't say exactly, but in so many words, he said, well, I'm going to get me money. And that's what managers think. They think, well, if I go in on a 3-year, like Cooper, he went in on a 3-year contract, departed after 3 months with pre-season. He's still got a nice compensation package. And he's probably still being paid by us until such time as he gets another job. So I don't take this that, you know, people like, oh, won't come to Leicester because they've got a points deduction or anything like that. I think managers will come if they look at in fact, they probably come more thinking, well, I'll get sacked after 6 months and still get me wages.
Yeah, and I think as well, if you get a good modern manager, they all want to progress. Leicester's got a fantastic world-class training facility. It's a great place, like all the young kids. It's such an impressive place, and they are bringing a lot of youth. And Leicester are definitely have spent more time in the Premier League and really should get back there. I don't saying that entitled, but
no, I agree. I agree with you.
You know, so we've got a really good fan base. We're a one team in the county club. And we have got a lot of very exciting young players coming through and some good players that have been underperforming. So it's like anything, you get a really good manager or, you know, taking over a project and he'll think, I can do something with this. And I do think we're very attractive. We have got very good owners as well. The owners are really good.
Well, at the moment we have.
Well, yeah, they're not a faceless American group or from China or Saudi Arabia. They're just excellent business that they have had a dip and they've made some iffy decisions, but the background to the reasons why COVID with their main business and the main guy that ran and made Leicester a success is now gone. So I just think it's just a real bad time. They have made some bad mistakes and they do need to get some help in, but I do think it's a temporary glitch. And I think anybody with a bit of intelligence will look at Leicester and think, I really would like this project.
That news that's coming out there, Dan.
Sorry, Chris. Does that project then go from boardroom level? Because at the moment, I'm thinking the way with the Leicester structure and the news coming out, it's almost a bit like, you know, the Manchester United fiasco of things needed to change up there for it to work down on the pitch. Or they need some sort of structure put into place, especially if the person behind the success has now gone. There needs to be that plan in place. And at the moment, with all the murmurs going around, that's obviously the priority over a managerial appointment, I guess.
And also, I think you've got to maybe look at top and go, yeah, you know, we haven't. I mean, look, you know, I know more about what the ongoings at MI5 than I do King Power. You know, they don't talk to us. The KGB let more things out than bloody, you know, King Power too. It's a joke really, as you know, and all it does is create toxicity around the fans because we're all saying what the fuck's going on, and you know. Top might be there thinking, I can't fucking do this anymore. I need help. Get somebody in. My business is about to go bump. So we might not have him much longer anyway. But why isn't he saying and putting something out to reassure us? Because, yes, we know that they are very, very people that sort of keep themselves to themselves. But we need to know what's going on, you know. I want to go back, if I can, Dan, to a point you made before. Dyche has been out of the game a while now. He's taking his time. He said in a few interviews, I'm not in any hurry to get back into football. I want to take my time and make sure the project's right. And I'm thinking, well, all right, he's coming into Leicester. 3-year, let's say he gets a 3-year deal, which 90% of managers do. I don't think we'll come up next season. I think we're odds on to get a points deduction. And if you want to know who Dan thinks will come up next season, 7 o'clock Thursday, check it out. He's giving us his predictions because, of course, he was in this championship last season, and he has predicted where we're all going to be. Now, I don't want to say I'm going to necessarily argue with you, Dan, but I might have a different point of view. But Leicester are going to have a points deduction without giving too much away about Thursday's show. But Leicester are going to have a points deduction. So this getting up, and people are saying, well, what if 6 points or whatever? We're in the Championship now. We play more games than we do in the Premier League. So where it might only have been a 6 point in the Premier League, it could very well be a 9-10 point in the Championship because, putting it into ratio with each other. But if we don't go up, and then like Leeds, we make it a 2-season thing to get back up, and that's easier said than done, in fairness to Leeds. And then we come up, and in his 3rd year he managed to keep us up. That would be the perfect scenario. Do you think that's something that would appeal to him as the manager?
Yeah, I think he's coming into a club, like you said, that there's a lot of uncertainty, but he could have a massive say in the future success of what's to come. And if it means that a message gets put out that, right, such and such is going to have to come in and help me out, that, things haven't been great, etc. And I'm sorry that things haven't been clear from our side of things, but we plan to have a rebuild. We plan to start and rebuild this football club to the great club that it once was, and all that stuff. And Dyche comes in and does that, what you said, over them 3 years. I think you'd be like, right, okay. Again, it goes back to what we said earlier. You'll have the certain fans that expect, right, well, no, we've come down, we're going back up again. And it doesn't always happen like that. It can, and there's no one saying that it won't. There is a very good chance that you will do that. It's expected of the 3 that come down to sort of chase that fortune again. But I think with the rebuild, with everything going on, we all know that those whispers in the background do sometimes spill onto the pitch because players want, certainty. I just think that sounds perfect to me. I think if I was sat there as a Leicester fan now, yes, I'd be worried about all the news coming out, but I would be very happy if that was what it was. You just miss out on the playoffs in the first season or something. Second season, you go up and finish in that top 2, or you even have a stint in the playoffs and do well. No one knows. No one knows what's to come with the points thing. I just think you can't rely on past success. Yes, all clubs have history. If that was the case, I'd still be saying, well, we won the top division in 1920. Why aren't we winning it again? It's living in the now, and the uncertainty around now is just we're back in the Championship. Let's just see what will happen. Regardless of the points. Let's just have a manager who's actually going to come in, get these players working hard, and make Leicester City great again.
Hey, come on, Donald Trump. Look, Dan, bear with me, Wayne, but I'll stick with Dan. This guy. We had a manager last year that was so stubborn, and like I say, wouldn't change the team, even though we were losing week in, week out. A bit of a double question for you here is, look, we've said over the last, I don't know how many managers, he's going to be good with the youth. He's going to be good with the youth. And yet we don't see any youth players come through. And we've had this brand new training facility, which is finally actually spawning now some good youngsters. It's like we planted the seeds whenever it was built, and now they're finally coming to flower. First question, I guess, is, what's he like with the youth? Does he give youth a chance?
Sean Dyche is the main reason we have now got a Category A academy. Sean Dyche is the main reason behind that. Our training ground was basically like playing Kirby on a back street. It were
Gawthorpe Hall, I remember it.
Yeah, and like I say, it's the grass were cut up. You were getting changed in basically cargo shipping containers and stuff like that. It was proper dundrums of football sort of stuff. And it was him who said, no, I want to invest in the youth system. I want us to have a better, it'll attract better caliber of player if we have better facilities for them to nurture. And he got the ball rolling on that. And that was one of his fundamentals when he actually took the job on. Again, that's another question with all the stuff around everything at the top. Will they then have to sell, the training ground rights, naming rights to make some money to come up with all this help? And these are all questions that are going to be asked from the Leicester fan base. But yeah, in terms of your question, Chris, Dyche was the catalyst for us now achieving a Category A academy status. So he does trust in youth.
I know. I'm only asking that because if we have got this transfer embargo, and apparently in the transfer embargo, they can't turn around and say you have to sell that player. So we not have to necessarily sell the crown jewels, although we probably know which ones are likely to go. But they say you've got to raise 30 million, and then you sell whoever you can, need to get that money in. The other problem, second part of the question is, we had a manager in Enzo who played a certain way, the Pep way. We then brought in Steve Cooper, and the argument there was, well, he was the only one that would come to us with everything hanging over us. But he played a completely different style, and having had that drilled into them so much, the players you could see were a bit confused. And then Ruud came in, and God knows what style he was playing, because we're still trying to work that one out. But the rumours are it was a Pep style based play.
Suicide football, Chris. It was suicide football.
Suicide football, yes, indeed. Can I just say, if anybody thought that it sounded very posh when I said that Burnley used to train at Gawthorpe Hall, Gawthorpe Hall was a very big old manor house on the National Trust, and they, I think, were on the bog pitch behind it.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, if Sean Dyche comes in and look, I guess he's a stubborn manager. We're used to stubborn managers. I can't see him sort of, not being stubborn, what I know of him. But will he look at the players and go, this is the way I want to play, and then go, oh, shit, they can't play that way. So will he then adapt to the players that he's got? The thing that was always thrown at him when it was Burnley was he played a certain way because that's all that Burnley could afford. And I'm not being,
that's
Burnley
exactly
down.
That's right, yeah. That's exactly right.
So, but will he then say, well, this is the way I want to play, but it isn't working with the players, so I'm going to have to play the way that suits them?
Yes. You look at Burnley, we've had to use wingers at times that try and get the ball out to the wingers to get the ball into the box. We've just tried to lump the ball over the top, counter-attacking football. We have tried 2 or 3 different ideas with Sean Dyche. He does give it time. He does give it time to try and tweak and gel. And I go back to the youth thing. Obviously, Jay Rodriguez, Dwight McNeil, 2 candidates that came through under Dyche that have gone on to have good careers as professional footballers. So I think tactical-wise, if it's not working, I'll go. I can see Jess in the comments as an Everton fan saying about that it will change. Sorry, what is it? That it'll stabilise you and work from the back, which we said earlier.
I had to look at work twice. I've got to be honest with you, Jessica. I didn't wonder what you'd thought there.
But he's at Everton. He'd either play it out to the wings, try and get the ball across, do the sort of Man City stuff, just a little tap in at the back post, play it across, things like that. Or he'd bring Beto on and try and lump a ball forward to the big man up top.
You mean he had a plan B?
Well, yes.
Give him the job.
Every now and again he had a plan B. Oh, it was plan A Mark II. I wouldn't say it was plan B.
But if he had a plan A, that's an improvement.
But no, he comes across very stubborn, but behind closed doors is the one that everyone goes to. That I look at players like Keith Tracy that we signed from Preston a long time ago, and he came to the club with alcohol problems, and managed to really sort him out. Said, "I'm always here if you need, a phone call, things like that." We've had the same with Clark Carlisle, who had his drink problems and obviously his mental health problems. And Dyche was a catalyst in, trying to keep him on the straight and narrow and help him out through tough times. He's not just a manager, but he's also a friend, a father figure. He's not just going to go in there. These young players are going to look up to somebody like Dyche and think, yeah, this is the sort of guy I will run through brick walls for. And again, that sounds cliche, but they really will. Especially that youngster that you brought through this year on the wing. I think he's been fantastic. Yeah, absolutely fantastic.
Calm down, Wayne. Calm down now. I mentioned his name. Just call it. Sorry. Wayne gets very excited when we discuss Monga. Calm down, Wayne. Calm down.
Kay's hit the nail on the head as well. Obviously, at Burnley, we ran a tight ship. The chairman we had at the time didn't really give him anything to spend. We was always going for peanuts. 35-year-olds at the back end of their career that will just about do us a job if we were to sign anyone new. I didn't think he was given a fair shout under the new ownership to show what he could do. I think, and thanks, Paul. I nearly said I agree with that. Obviously, I'm going to agree with that. It's my own view. Big-headed shit.
Would do somehow.
Yeah, if he were given the time to invest, I reckon he probably still would have done well under this new ownership.
I just want to bring this point up before I come over to Wayne. Jessica says, expect Michael Keane to pop up. Jessica, when your choices are Yannick Vestergaard, Connor Cody, or Wout Faes, I think we'd all love Michael Keane to come and pop up, I tell you.
Take Michael Sheen at this moment.
Well, he did plain bluff, didn't he, in the film?
He did.
Wayne, and that's an important thing for me, and it was good to hear Dan's answer. And this was my problem with Ruud van Nistelrooy, because he bullshitted so much, didn't he, through the season. Promised that he'd do the youngsters. Even when we were relegated, it was almost like he was having to be begged to bring the youngsters on. Why was he still playing a lone player when we got relegated? He's not going to be here next fucking season. Give other players a chance. But what Ruud van Nistelrooy never did, I don't think, was look at the players he's got. And after 19 losses in 21 games, go, this ain't working. I need to maybe play to their strengths. And that's great. That's I think, because if we can't bring many players in, that's what we're going to need, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I do think if Dyche came in, he would sort the defence out better. He'd probably say, Faz, get your bloody haircut and stay in position. He'd sort him out. I really rate him. He comes across as a genuine guy. I think the fans will turn on him, to be honest, because the fans... some of the younger fans do turn quickly, but I do think he does play three at the back, doesn't he? Hey, Chris, there you go.
Foul, keep up, Foul. Keep it up. You're doing well.
Is that going to go in your pillow, Chris?
Mate, I've got to be honest with you. I've got to wash it first.
Dyche sounds similar to Pearson from how Dan was speaking. He does sound similar to Pearson, so. Like Pearson put his arm around Vardy with Shakespeare and with and just said, look, you can do it. You're not going on loan. He seems a straight up guy, genuine. He'd care about the players he'd got. And do I think if we'd have had Dyche from the beginning of the season, we would have probably stayed up? Yes, probably. But
I think we would have done with Cooper, to be honest.
I think we would. I think we'd have just scraped up, which a lot of fans saying, I don't care what football we play as long as we stay up. And when it actually came to it, they just didn't like it.
But do you think, Wayne, that if Sean Dyche comes in, a la Steve Cooper, and it doesn't work out, because this is who Rudkin wants and Top doesn't, and then this is presuming that Top's still going to be with us and everything's going to work out on that side, then Top comes along after 12 games again and goes, sorry, Sean, you're useless, get out. If we may be mid-table or something.
Yeah, one thing I'll say, though, about this is a rumour. Because, was it last week?
We like a good rumour.
We do, but it depends where they come from. And it's like Russell Martin. I mean, fans were apoplectic that Leicester were going to sign Russell Martin How can they sign? What? Oh my God, the board, they're disgusting. They need to go. And Rob Tanner came on a show and he says basically there was no grounds in that room whatsoever. I spoke to people at Leicester who were never interested in Russell Martin, and it was generated by his agent. Obviously, his leverage for him to get the Rangers job, and it worked. So, you've got to be careful sometimes with the rumours.
You do, as you well know, Dan.
What
You well
Southampton
know.
said. Look at what Southampton said, that Russell Martin probably still would have been the Southampton manager now if it wasn't for VAR. Which it's mad that a club would even come out and say that when they've just appointed a new manager and things like that. The one thing I will pull out on Dyche as well is that he can pick a bargain out of somewhere. I had my doubts when we signed Tom Eaton, relegated with Bristol City, relegated with Cardiff, turned him into an England international. Tarkowski, the same, a little lad from Oldham.
Yeah.
I had a decent spell at Brentford, came to us, got an England call up. Ben Mee, for me, was one of those British centre-backs that I believe should have at least had a cap for England and hasn't. But it's those sort of players that he picks up for next to nothing, absolute peanuts, and turns them into selling on prices of 25 million plus.
Yeah. Dwight McNeil, he ended up playing for England, didn't he, a couple of times? Dwight McNeil, I think.
Yeah, I think he's had a couple of caps. Yeah.
We were linked with him a few times, but that's what we need to get back to, because that's what we used to be good at. Was picking the Mahrezes, picking the Vardys, picking the Kantes up and selling them on. That's what we need. Talking of players, Dan, how's the bum shuffler?
Which one?
Well, you've got more than one bum shuffler, have you? I was thinking of the ice cream seller, Cornet.
Oh, he's on a free, isn't he? He's apparently available. So I don't know.
Remember that, Wayne? He actually got fouled off the pitch.
Oh, yes, I do remember that.
Off, back onto the pitch to get the game ended.
And he scored an absolutely fantastic volley as well. I do remember that.
But hopefully his career is coming to an end.
No, well, he's available on a free now after being released from West Ham. I think he spent last season on loan at Genoa. People have put in pictures of planes from Flight Scanner on and saying, "Oh, there's a plane that's picked up a Burnley player or a soon-to-be Burnley player, and then it's gone and done a trip towards Genoa. I wonder if there's a slight return." It's like, oh, for God's sake, really?
I'm looking at this. I'm looking at this overall, and what will be will be. In a way, Dan, I think it's quite good because, as Wayne said there, I think I hate to say that Top was listening to the crowd as to why he wanted and why he sacked Cooper, because he certainly wasn't listening to the crowd when he kept Ruud van Nistelrooy on. No. And at least if we do take Sean Dyche on, he's got this. It's pre-season. So, although it was with Cooper, wasn't it, I guess? But there's none of that you'll get like with Martin, like the fans were shouting, we don't want Martin before, any offer had been made or anything. So he's not going to have to go through that, I suppose. But I just think that he can come in because, look, we've had a lot of trouble with players this season, whether they're bringing the dog to work or they don't want to, stay overnight before a game. And, you believe whichever side of the story you want to.
That's the manager you want then. That is the manager you want.
What, Wayne?
Him there and the one right at the top.
You're pointing at Wayne there. You mean Dyche?
Dyche in the top corner up there. But no,
it's a lack of hair, isn't it? That's why you got confused.
We've all got it. Well, had it at one point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
If Dan carries on like this, Chris, I'm going to have to get my a bit of ginger tint put in.
You are. Yes. We've all got upside down heads here, haven't we?
Yeah. We're perfect at Easter, us three.
Yeah.
But no, he's the perfect guy. Absolutely perfect guy, like I say.
And to be honest, excuse me, with some of the players being like fast, a few of our players have thought, especially when we came up from the Championship, they thought they were brilliant. They thought they'd walk into the Premier.
Oh, he doesn't do egos. He'll knock that out. He'll knock that out of him. There was a little thing at Burnley that he did where they brought, and I think he said he brought it to Everton, where there was like a pinwheel, and he brought the team together by doing this camaraderie of if you're late or you don't clean your shit up afterwards from in the changing room. You spin this wheel, you'll get a fine, or you'll have to. At Burnley, it was a case of you'd have to, sit in the River Calder for a minute and things like that. And there are all these different things, but it brought the team together. Like I said earlier, he doesn't want you wearing headphones walking in. He wants you actually speaking to the fans. He doesn't allow cameras around the training ground because he wants, he doesn't want people watching what he's trying to achieve, what he's trying to do. He wants everyone to be in a tight-knit group, not focusing on media this and media that, which obviously is rife as anything in today's football. But it's those old principles that stand these players in good stead, that at first they'll be a bit like, well, this is a bit unorthodox. No, I could do what I want, do this, do that. But they're the sort of eggs that he'll go, right, well, you're not for me then. See you later. Yeah. You're here to play football. You're not here to be all this talented. I've got this on Instagram, I'm that and what and the other. Just go out there, lace up your boots and do the job I'm asking of you. And that's when certain players will go, yeah, for you, I'd do that.
Kate says then you might want to clip this bit as well. He talks sense sometimes, does our Daniel?
I've screen grabbed it 4 times because I could have seen it on screen. Just to make sure that it's definitely saved.
She may have got Paul and Daniel the wrong way round. I don't know. Is he the man to sort out our prima donnas, Wayne?
Yeah, most definitely is. My question mark, I know we talked about youth, but Rude talked about playing the youth, and as you said, Mr. Billy Bullshitter. It didn't really come through, and it was a token thing. And the rumours are, has he been told by the top, you must play the young people? What's the point of having this great bringing the kids along facility? But I do think that's why my vote is for Danny Roll, because I do think he would bring the younger players on more, because I get he has brought younger players on. It's been interesting comparing what players he's had at Everton and Burnley compared to what players he's got at Leicester City currently and up and coming. But I do think Danny Roll would do that, but he would sort out the prima donnas. And I think like how Maresca did it at Chelsea, I mean, that was impressive. I didn't like the way he left us in the lurch, having signed Vestergaard, but when he went to Chelsea, fair play, he sorted all that lot out. Cleared away all the dead wood, straightforward manager, cares about his players, but straightforward. So I do think in management and in modern football, that's like a Nigel Pearson kind of character, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cares about his players, but he'll put his arm around you as well, and he does genuinely care about you and about your well-being as well.
My problem with Danny Roll is probably that last season he had a lot of players on loan. He talked to contacts at Southampton and players like that. So bringing in like Shea Charles to be with his cousin that he had there, and you've got the under-19s England keeper, is it Beadle, that they had as well. So they've added some youth in there because they had Sheffield Wednesday have an aging squad. Don't they? You've got Barry Bannon, who's older than us 3 combined, probably still knocking about, still clinging on to what air he's got left, the jammy little git. And they've got players up front. I think Ike Ugbo, who were at Chelsea, they've got. But other than that, you've probably got Callum Patterson, who's knocking on now as well. It's he's found a balance of youth and old, but he's had to bring that youth in on loan to a team that is aging. So, do you want to be going down that loan market, or do you want those permanent signings that you could pick up for a couple of quid that could be nurtured into top talents?
I was trying to think here. They've had quite a few managers of Sheffield Wednesday. Danny Roll's there at the moment. I mean, his win record was only 38%, so it wasn't that much better than Sean Dyche. And Danny Roll hasn't done it in the Premier League. Pre that, you had Cisco Munez, who was only there 12 games, let's be honest with you, and he had a win percent of none because he didn't win any. But before that, when this is the Darren Moore, the Sheffield Wednesday that I remember, Darren Moore was manager, ex-player, loved him, but they were the easiest. I mean, how they stayed up, God only knows, but they did with a bit of, I think it was sacking Darren Moore that possibly kept them up. But when you're taking over from somebody like Darren Moore and for 12 games Muniz, you're going to look good, aren't you? Dan?
Yeah, of course you are. Of course you are. I think a lot of them wanted Carlos.
Corberán.
No, the other one.
Carvalho.
Yeah. Because beforehand, I think they were close to the Premier League at one point. They got into the playoff final, narrowly missed out, and wanted him back. But end of the day, they've appointed Danny Rowell, young manager. Again, that comes with its risks. But it's paid off for Sheffield Wednesday. I think that he will get a move at some point, but I don't think Danny Rowell and Leicester would. For me, I just don't see that move.
You're sticking your finger up, Wayne.
Yeah, just with regards
to the toilet if you want to. You don't have to ask.
I know. Still throwbacks to my kindergarten days.
He needs a touch up.
Yeah.
Sorry, Wayne.
That's why he's my son, you see. He looks like I do. Sorry, Wayne. Do carry on.
I've got fake skin. But so with regards to the loan, him having to take players on loan, I do think there are a lot of brilliant ex-England World Cup champions from 17s, 19s and 21s around the English game that don't ever get chances, except when Lampard got a transfer embargo, played all the young kids, got in the Champions League. All of a sudden he got a few $100 million spent it and spat the lot and screwed it up and got the sack. But I think the difference with Leicester is we've got a lot of players that we have sent out on loan, or if we were staying in the Premier, we would send out on loan from the training academy. But because we're in the Championship now, a lot of those players will actually get chances and probably play 30 games in our team, because a lot of fans have been very unhappy with Rude. They're saying if he'd have played the younger kids and would have still gone down, they'd have said, you know what, you've played our academy players. We can see why we've got the academy. We can see what effects the fact the academy is really working and it's worth the investment. And in the future, it looks really good, so we can start to be like a Brighton. But Ruud van Nistelrooy, as Chris said, he just completely went back on his word. So I do think Leicester as a champ, as like with Danny Rowell, he would have a lot of riches compared to Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah.
And like Maresca, to be honest, all the fans said that Maresca should have brought Leicester up last season because Leicester had the most expensive ever Championship squad. And he nearly fluffed it, basically.
Yes, he did. He did.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say, before I go on with the last few questions, guys, start putting in the chat a simple yes or no. Would you like Sean Dyche as the next LCFC manager? I mean, as David just mentioned, he's a Spurs fan. He's saying he thinks he'd be a good fit. So just put yes or no, and we'll see sort of which ones come up most. So start getting those in. Like I say, though, I am worried with Danny Rowell that what is he coming on as? You know what I mean? He's not like he's coming on from having won anything. You know, when we got Martin O'Neill, I think he'd got a promotion with Wickham and what have you. What has Danny Rowell done? Nothing. You know, Ruud van Nistelrooy got the job because he did reasonably well with the Manchester United side that were really struggling. 2 of those games were against us. So what does that tell you? You know, you played him twice last season, Dan, at Sheffield Wednesday. I presume you won both. What was his team like?
I think so. In fact, I think we drew one, actually. I'm not sure. That might have been Shift. No, we didn't. We won them both, actually. 2-0 and 4-0. So I
will tell you about your club. Don't you worry, Dan.
Listen, we won that many games. I can't,
Oh no! Come on.
It was hard to piece them together, but
fair enough. With the season you had, fair enough. You know, but we've had 2 yeses so far.
If I remember rightly, though, Chris, the way they play is similar to how I saw Leicester in the last couple of games of the season, where you could, in certain moments, you could see the fight, you could see what you was trying to achieve, but then one thing would just derail it, and little things like that. And that was similar with Sheffield Wednesday. Now, again, Danny, going back to what you said about Danny Rowell, he's going to have to learn about that. how to then fix those little, pockets and areas that need to be done. Is that the sort of manager that's going to have to come in and do the same again in this club? That's the worry. I rate him, and my uncle's a Sheffield Wednesday fan. He's used to write the fanzines and stuff, and he's even said he will go on to be a Premier League manager at some point. And I don't discredit that, but I think right now what Leicester need is somebody that's got a proven record, a bit of history with laying out foundations, and a sort of a rebuild job. There's rebuilding and having a bit of a background, or this just tearing the book up and starting again, and that could be more detrimental to Leicester than it could be a benefit.
Wayne, Sean Dyche, first job Watford 2011, last job Everton 2025. 558 games he's managed, 192 wins, like I say, 34.41%. Comparing that to Bacon Roll, 89 games played since since October 23. Like, again, I can't believe I'm saying this. This is only to get out my alimony, but it's another good point that Dan makes. Yeah, all right. You'll save this. You'll be watching this over and over again, this show.
Don't worry, Dan. A favour. He's going to ask a favour very shortly.
But
it's a good job the camera's only to hear. I'm way too excited. All these conflict. My ego's never been this high. Never.
Your ego's never been as massaged as much, has it? Kate, what are you doing tonight? Massage his ego when he comes in. And yes, that is a euphemism. But Wayne, what Dan said there is it's what we need right now. If we were looking at a manager to maybe replace Enzo, or a manager to replace oh God, I can't even remember his name now. Went to Rogers, and what have you. Then Roll may well have been the man. I just don't think, with his inexperience and what he hasn't won, I don't think he's the right man. It's possibly the right man at the wrong time for Danny Roll.
I think that's a fair point, to be honest. And I'd still go back to Steve Cooper. I did not. Well, it was a semi-okay point.
No. You said fair point.
Right, it is.
No, it's like Steve Cooper.
Keep it up. I'm enjoying it.
But did I want Steve Cooper? Not really. But did I understand as a fan why he would be chosen? Because he has got Forest promoted. He did, it did well with the budget. And do I think he probably would have kept us up just in 17th? Yes. But he was sacked because Top does want a more modern, inverted commas, manager. Although, like, football goes in fads, like everybody's having grey on the houses. In a couple of years' time, everybody will be having brown fencing and brown paint on the house. And definitely Pep's, football evolves, and the modern, the best teams in the Premier, Arsenal will play Chelsea, and Chelsea will have 60% possession, and Arsenal will beat Chelsea with 40% possession, because how many chances you create in the box. Fans will say it's okay to have 40% possession if, when we do go forward, we play attacking, exciting football. So I think that's the way the game's going.
I just want to go forward, no matter what sort of football we play.
How many times you look at the stats at the end of the game, and they've had 70% you've had 30, but you nick it 1-0.
Yes,
but I suppose it's
like when you won the league, though. You won the league off winning games 1-0. We achieved European promotion off winning games 1-0. It's that right now that needs to be the solid foundation to then build. While there's cracks in the foundation, this is where you need somebody, who's going to come in with a big tube of polyfiller and sort it out. Danny Roll would be okay to bring in if the foundation was already laid and it was a rebuild project.
Is that better than a big tube of penetration then? I can't think. The moment's gone. Preparation H. That's what I was thinking. I mean, we won the league with the least possession by any club that's ever won it, and having all this possession, I get so fed up. And this is what I said to Julian Watts, and he argued the point, but I have to say he was still wrong in my eyes, that just because, somebody's been sprinkled with pep dust, that doesn't make them absolutely brilliant. Yes, Enzo, it's worked out for. But why do we have to go, this is Pep, and we've got to do this the Pep way? Pep won fuck all this season, so...
Because he didn't have the quality around that he had before. He lost the Ballon d'Or central midfield.
But again, this is the thing, isn't it? Certain managers, we always said, don't we? It's always a saying, would Jose Mourinho be able to do it on a wet night at Rochdale midweek? If he went into Rochdale, he wouldn't get them to win anything because he wouldn't be given millions to spend. And whoever comes in is not going to have that. And that's why I think Dyche... And I've got to be very careful here because I'm going to say my last choices as managers haven't particularly gone very well. I wanted Dean Smith, and of course he didn't get the job and he took us down, but we were down then anyway. I wanted Steve Cooper. I wanted Ruud van Nistelrooy. So I'm keeping quiet on this one because...
yeah, but Chris, you know, originally, when Burnley were looking for a manager, we all thought Ruud van Nistelrooy were going to get the job.
Yes.
It looked like he was going to come in at Burnley. Alan Pace wanted someone similar to Kompany, a big name from the Premier League era that's going to have a bit of a pull on bringing players in. But it wasn't Pace that sort of said, he obviously gave the final, we'll have Scott Parker, but it was the other people in the interview process that said, I've not seen somebody so committed and make such a reassuring job of what they want to achieve and where they want to take us than they had Scott Parker with what Scott Parker said. And like I say, that goes back to your comment about Rudkin and Top having the difference of opinion. Sometimes one of them just has to bite the bullet and say, okay, fair enough, we'll go with what's what, and we'll see what goes on from there. Obviously Man United came knocking at the door when we wanted Ruud, so he went back there for 2 weeks, right? Something like that, something stupid. Yeah. And then obviously, Chris himself will probably hold his hand up and say that, at the time it was like, oh, Scott Parker looks like he's coming to your God, and now.
I can remember going on to a show and saying, thank you very much, Burnley, for taking
one for the team.
You're taking one for the team. But the question is, and you're going to hear it here first, we will be appointing Scott Parker at some point as our next manager because you wanted Steve Cooper and he came to us. You wanted Ruud van Nistelrooy and he came to us. So it's only a matter of time that we will get Scott Parker. But guys, look, look, Wayne, have we convinced you? Is Sean Dyche now the man, or do you still hanker over the guy that's not won anything and never proved himself and quite honestly will play it around the back worse than Ruud van Nistelrooy? Don't think I'm being, I'm not trying to sort of, force you one way or the other there, but no, is cheese and onion roll still the man you want?
Yeah, to be honest, when you said, will you come on and chat with Dan, I did look into Dyche's stats and the people he brought on that Dan's mentioned, and he is a very impressive character. He has been there and seen it and done it. My only concern is that it's what kind of football you want to play, not just possession for possession's sake. But I prefer Danny Roll because I think it's more longer term, as in, I think that's the way. We've got a lot of young kids and, do not waste these young kids because some of them are brilliant.
Yeah. David Clark says there, you wanted Mr. Bean. Look, we've had Mr. Bean for 3/4 of last season. Anybody ever watch Scooby-Doo where, they take the mask off the villain at the end? You go, oh, it's Mr. Jones, the janitor. Well, I'll tell you what, if you take Ruud van Nistelrooy's mask off, you'll see it's Mr. Bean under there. But as we'll end on this comment, Blue Fox says there, winning football, please. To me, That's all I want. Like I say, if we win, I'd sooner win 1-0 boring than, lose 3-2 playing effective football. Dan, look, you've got your address there at Turf Moorhouse. It is in the description. It is in the title as well. I know you've been having a bit of time off from the channel. Have you got anything planned at all? Apart from, obviously, Kate massaging your ego when you get in tonight.
Yeah, no, I'm just I'm looking forward to what next season brings. Like I say, 08 or 09, I was happy to be a Premier League team. Now everyone's there for the money, aren't they? It's not about the big teams you're facing anymore. You sort of see how much it's all regarding the business. But no, I'm looking forward to it. Going to hopefully get back into the channel, and I'm hoping at least at some point there's going to be a season where Leicester and Burnley can happily shake hands and say, "Hey, we're in the same division again."
Well, you've got to stay in that Premier League, Dan. That's the thing.
Yes, that's what I mean. That's what I mean.
I don't think he has. I think he's got to come down because I don't think we'll go up next season. But of course, will Dan think we'll come up next season? Thursday, 7:00. He has predicted his top 24. If you've to tell you the way of describing it, he has predicted the league. Join us at 7:00 on Thursday, see what it's like. But join us tomorrow at 7. You can see it going across the bottom there. King Power on the brink of collapse. What will this mean for LCFC? Leicester Till I Die TV. This channel tomorrow. Click that notification bell, and then, of course, you won't forget. And, of course, the interesting thing is that they've sacked Chris Coleman at OH Laven, which is our sister club. They've appointed somebody else. God knows who he is. They can do that there, but they can't do it here. What is going on? Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Well, it has for Dan, but I don't know about the rest of us. But thank you very much. Take care, everybody, and I will see you tomorrow night. Thanks, Wayne. Thanks, Dan. Take care, guys.
Cheers. Thanks a lot.
Cheers. And thanks to everybody for being in the chat and joining in there. Really, really, really do appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. Like I said, do join us. And remember, thank you for listening. If you've been listening via your favourite podcast platform, thank you for joining in the chat. If you haven't done yet, please subscribe. Click the like button as well. It all helps. I will see you tomorrow night. I bet you can't wait. Well, I bet you probably can, actually. Take care, everybody. Go out and enjoy the sun. Good night.
Thanks for watching. These videos are tremendous. You better like them too, or I'll be back.
This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
That will conclude this evening's entertainment.
Thanks for watching. These videos are tremendous. You better